All right, we're coming back, hitting you with the head crush. New Gaming Order. We're in segment number 2 for 3/19/2016. Now, we're going to be talking about Sony moving or, you know, fiddling with the idea of doing a 4K conversion for the PS4. So, Demizo, free play mode, you got the floor. Can you lay down the foundation for us?
Well, GDC has been going on for this past week, and for those who don't know what that is, it's a gaming conference, game developers conference, where all the top developers and all the top publishers meet and discuss their latest projects and how it's going to affect them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
According to multiple developers, Sony has been floating the idea of coming out with a 4K gaming enabled version of the PlayStation 4. A lot of developers are joking, dubbing it the ps4K, or as Sony is internally calling it, the ps4.5. And a lot of people saw this kind of coming with Microsoft announcing that they may look into incremental upgrades of the Xbox One or any future console that they release, instead of just releasing console generation after console generation. And I think this is, as I said in the other podcast where we discussed Microsoft's intentions, I think this is a bad idea because we're heading back into the Sega days when they released the Sega CD and the Sega 32X. And if Sony does this, you're going to end up, and if Sony and Microsoft do this, they're going to end up splitting their markets, because even though we discussed, like, yeah, developers can release a baseline,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially, okay, the game has to be able to run on the base model of our console. But if you want to do the 4K version, you can do that too. I don't see developers doing that because that's going to require more resources. And according to reports, they're not looking to simply build a console that's capable of, oh, we're just going to upscale to 4K, even though the textures are natively 1080p. What they're looking to do is include maybe a stronger GPU and a stronger processor, so it'll do their newly announced VR, which we'll talk about on my podcast after this one. It'll handle that better, as well as do native 4K textures and everything. And I don't see developers wanting to make two versions of their game where they have the 1080p textures, then they have the 4K textures. Because if you look back at the Xbox 360, while the Xbox 360 was the more powerful graphically of the two consoles between the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3 had the disk space to include the higher res textures natively on,
and the processors were more powerful.
So what developers had to do in the later stages of the Xbox 360's lifestyle is include the game, like the retail game, and then, like, I remember games like Ghost Recon, Future Soldier 2, and Splinter Cell, Blacklist. They had the, like, high-res textures available for download. And I don't think,
or on a separate disc, right? I remember, like, the games that came with disc.
So I don't think developers are going to be wanting to make multiple versions of their game going forward, and that's going to split the market, because you're going to have, especially with Sony, because Sony has like 40 million PlayStation 4s out there right now. And if you release a PS4K, that's going to piss a lot of people off. It truly is. And I think Sony and Microsoft will be better served waiting. Like, we're in year number 3 of the current hardware generation. Give us at least that 5-year span, because 5-6 year span, because truthfully the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 were anomalies among the console generations, because they were like the first true 10-year cycle, whereas every other console generation has been like 5 or 6 years. So people who were just coming into gaming, or having like just got into the gaming at the tail end of the PS2, Xbox, GameCube generation, people kind of expect the 10-year life cycle, and they need to realize that's not the standard, that's not the norm. It
was an unusual case that with that generation.
Like, and they need to realize that the typical console generation is 5 to 6 years. So Microsoft and Sony need to stop talk with this, oh, we're gonna release incremental upgrades, or we're gonna release a PS4K or a PS4.5. Just stick it out for another 2.5 years, then release the next console that adequately meets what's going on. Because I'll be real here, like, I didn't expect the rise of 4K to happen so swiftly, because truth be told, like, it took a while for 1080p to be a thing. It truly did. But with 4K, like, 4K televisions are affordable. You can go out and buy a 4K television, like, not even a cheap knockoff brand. You can buy like a Vizio 4K television for about $700, and it'd be a 45-inch television.
Okay.
So 4K is here. 4K is affordable. Don't make the mistake and rush out an incremental upgrade to your systems, Microsoft and Sony. Just
wait for the next gen.
Yeah, just ride this one out.
Okay.
We realize that the consoles are underpowered, but just ride this one out. Don't alienate your user base.
Okay. Now, to respond to that, I think, remember we did a podcast talking about the Xbox console, whether it be this generation or the next console, where they're gonna make it where it'll be like we were saying, the incremental upgrades. That's one thing, but I think that, again, that's Sony and Microsoft are doing an emergency response to, like you said, like, it's the standard now for a lot of things. Like, you know, you can look at how beautiful some of the YouTube videos look in 4K. Like, there's some videos like on my 4K smart TV, when I watch them on native on the TV and then on the Xbox, it's like, wow, you can see like kind of the difference there. So I guess they're trying to just capitalize on that. They don't want to be left behind, Demizo. That's what I think, you know. But giving Goken the floor, what are your thoughts on, you know, Sony considering doing a 4K version or a PS4K, you know, at this stage in the console race? Because I see what Demizo's talking about. Because those who already have it,
I agree. I agree with Demizo mostly. But I don't think that if they do a PlayStation 4.5, they will piss people off. They 100% they'll piss people off if they do that. But it won't.
It's gonna sell though. Sony can do no wrong, man.
It'll sell. But it won't. I don't think it's gonna split the market too much, though. You know what I mean? Because that key thing there is they're gonna have to keep that baseline, and all games have to run at 1080p, even for their VR. Like, they have a standard that no game can run under 60 frames per second, right? And so 4K, having a GPU that can do 4K doesn't necessarily meet that criteria, because most games only can run at 30 to 40 frames a second. You know what I mean? So they're gonna have to do it in a way that kind of, you know, like, for the people that can afford it and get it, they can get it. And when they have their 4K TV at home, they can natively play the game in 4K. But remember, there are even all the GPUs that are out right now are not running, depending on the game, are not running at high frame rates at 4K. So, I mean, I guess that would be the only limitation for right now, until DirectX 12 and Vulkan APIs are fully used in all the games, right? And most developers are going to have to go back and add those features to get access to the metal. So, yeah, I mean, it won't be good for them overall. They will piss a lot of people off. Unfortunately, people will still buy it. And even if Microsoft,
I think the top end tech geeks will buy it, but I don't think
casual.
No. Top end tech geeks are not going to buy it, because let's face it, if you have a 980 Ti or you have a Radeon Fury X, I mean, you got 4K PC gaming, and it's not worth the investment of you going to pay for a console that can do 4K. It really isn't.
Here's my thing. How about this? What do you think if Sony were to do it like in a trade-in program, refurbish, recycle, take all those old PS4s and
give them to third world countries.
I would say I would say like use the parts and resources to funnel the other. I don't know.
Not
It's
like
just,
Apple. I don't think they thought that far ahead.
That's a waste of money.
I'm just saying that because think about it. Like if everybody is like, you know, the fanboys would say, "Hey, we can do 1080p, 1080p," right? Then it's gonna be 4K, 4K, 4K.
Yeah, but
it's
you
like,
still
all
have
right,
to go buy
so
a 4K TV. You still have to go buy a 4K TV. Like this is going to cater to the person that's a gamer and has a 4K TV.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Sony releases this, it's mostly for the people who have 4K TVs and want to do that. Now, if you want to do it, then now you have to go spend $600, $600 to $1,200, or even $1,500 on a 4K TV, and another $350 to $500 on the console. Right, so
and then you know what? PlayStation VR is also behind a lot to do with it too. So you got the 4K TV, then you got the freaking new console, then you got the $300-something PlayStation VR, which is actually decently priced. You know, what I mean?
It's decently priced, right? Because everything else is $600 and $800. But you got to remember, right? For VR to be successful, like they need that thing running at 90 to 120 hertz in each eye. Okay, that requires a lot of power. You can't do that at 4K. Right now, the standard is 1080p. Even I think the resolution may be a little high. The pixel count may be a little higher, but I think that's like the standard for 4K. Yeah, you know what I mean? But you need like 4K in each eye to get those rates.
But
you need a lot of power for that too. So,
it's
a weird place.
Yeah. All right. Well, Shinwar, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
You have your PS4, right? If there was what?
Go ahead.
And he's tapping buttons playing Street Fighter 5.
Shut up.
But if you were given the option to get a 4K version of the PS4 or PS4K or 4.5 as they're, rumoring this thing, would you get it? And how do you feel about that? I mean,
I wouldn't get it. If I never had a PS4 and this was announced, then yeah, I would get this quote unquote PS4.5. Since I already have one, I am content. My personal observation of it, I think it's a waste. I would rather them do the PS5 with it. 4 years from now. And then probably by then 4K will probably be obsolete and we'll probably be on the next set. But for me, I already have a PS4. Already dropped $400 on this thing just to get a 4.5. And Dave made a good point. It's kind of going back into the whole Sega thing. Even though those were different add-ons, you had your Sega CD and all that, I just feel like I can save that money for something better. Now, like Garvin said, if you have a PC and then you're doing an upgrade, that's a different story in regards, to the PC. But to do that for a console, I think that's kind of disrespectful now that I think about it.
Why do you say it's disrespectful?
Because I already have the console. Most people don't know the difference between 4K and 1080 already.
But it's the propaganda, though. Sony knows this. They know this.
It's like 4K. I gotta get it. And you know what? There will be people, as they say, the blind fanboys that will rush out and go get it.
Yeah, like, Sony. Yeah.
That makes no sense. That makes no sense. So, I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get it. But I can see if somebody didn't have the console to begin with, then yeah, go get it. Get the latest model, as they say. But,
you know what? I don't use my PS4 a lot, but I would say I would trade in this one to get a 4K one. Just to have, I have to admit, I would.
Now, do you think Sony would do that though? Have a trade-in program?
No.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that.
You know, the minute that 4K one comes out, the PlayStation 4 becomes devalued.
Oh yeah.
You get about $200 at a GameStop for trading in a console like that.
That's why you got Craigslist, and you trick people.
And as the months go by, as the months go on, the price of that comes down.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a smart move for them to do that, but I don't know. But you know what? Let me ask Nelson, last but not least. Give us your thoughts on that, man, because that's kind of crazy, man. And you know what? Remember, I actually got into an argument with one of our viewers over this. I said, they're like, oh, you just mad because Sony's trying to do something and put some more, And I said, you know what? Let me tell you something. At the end of the day, they already got the money, right? They're already in the lead, and I said it when I was playing Titanfall. I'm like, well, just wait till the next gen. There's no reason to do this now. You know what I mean? Demizo said it. Write it out. They're in this position that Nintendo usually finds themselves in because they're always releasing underpowered stuff and they have to keep playing catch up. So that's just my stay on it. But Nelson, your thoughts?
Well, I think this is a bad idea, period. Like, oh no, you're releasing another hardware yet again. For what? Just because people are demanding 4K? I've said this numerous times. I said this on several different podcasts. I said this even on my stream. You fucking idiots do not understand the difference between 720p and 1080p. So what's the fucking difference now if you're going to get 1080p to 4K?
Drop the mic. Thank you. Thank you.
Hold up. One, you're going to need a brand new TV. And that's going to already piss people off. It's like, oh, why is Sony making me buy a new TV? Oh, wait, now you got to buy a whole new fucking console. Oh, wait, now on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, now you're going to have to buy a new version of the disc of the game to support the 4K native. Because last time I checked, when they were trying to do the supposed upscaling, it wasn't damaging to the game or the disc. Now, since the whole firmware game and the whole console game is changing, they might need to re-release the same games with the 4K enablement on the game CD, which might change everything. So now you're fucking your excuse me, you're fucking up your consumer base right there. Not only that, but you guys should just do the same idea as I mentioned previously on the previous podcast. Just make it so that the consoles are upgradable. For the hardcore gamers, you swap out the part, you buy the add-on, you put it on the fucking system, boom, there you go. Where's the point? You're not going to be able to trade in your whole console and get a free one. That's not happening. That's the dumbest idea for Sony to waste even more money for nothing. So what they're going to make you do is either, one, you're going to have to go buy a $500 fucking console with the 4K add-on, what we fucking do, when the PS4 is already doing good as it is in 1080p, and no one can tell the goddamn difference, or just make it so that you're going to have to go to GameStop or the Microsoft store or the Sony store. You'll probably get like $200 credit, and then you have to pay the whole fucking difference for the fucking game. I see it to be a pointless thing. You guys are bitching and complaining about display resolution, and the majority of you don't even have PCs. That's what's even worse. I for one, am blessed to have a PC thanks to, NYC Playboy and NGO Goken for helping me, build it and providing the money for it.
Shut up.
And I can natively play all my games on 4K if I chose to, but it's as simple as putting in or uninstalling a graphic card compared to buying a whole new console just to get one little support.
That's true. If it's not changing your game experience, you shouldn't be spending that much money. That's why the VR thing, somewhat justifiable, new tech and a lot of new things that they're trying to do. But just to see things a little more, slightly more crisp, and to some people's native eye, they can't see past 90 frames per second anyway. They can't see past certain hertz. So why are they worried about it? It's the propaganda again.
Right. So the 4K does change. Listen, for someone who doesn't, 720p and 1080p, yes, it's hard for a normal gamer person to understand what they're actually seeing on the screen when they upscale or in the downscaling. But when you go to 4K and you see native 4K for the first time in the level of detail,
it looks crazy.
It looks nuts, right? It's fucking crazy. So you're gonna be able to tell the difference at 4K.
Oh yeah.
But hold on. If they move into this whole 4K format for the PS4.5 or whatever, That 500 gig hard drive ain't gonna cut it. That ain't gonna cut it.
No. So remember. So I don't think that remember that the size of the game may not necessarily change the power requirements, right? So a game like GTA 5 wasn't originally a 4K game, right?
Yeah, so it's not going to have the same output.
Right. It's not going to add more space. It's still 65 gigs, but I can still play that game at 60, with 65 gigs on my storage at 4K. It's all about the system being able to handle it. Not more so like the amount of data.
Right.
I'll put it to you like this: like how PlayStation 4 has the internal power supply, and Microsoft has been going with the power brick for quite some time.
Yeah, the external. Yep.
Yeah, Sony would have to switch to an external power brick because that's
100%.
Yeah,
because that's how much draw it would be, or they like the PS4K would have to be like nearly 1.5 times the size of a current Xbox One. Use an internal power supply for 4K resolution.
Mm-hmm. Now that you say that, go ahead.
Would have to have at least heat pipe based cooling or some kind of liquid based cooling.
Yeah.
To run that if they were going to go with an internal power supply.
Yeah. Well, the new so if you look at the technology trends in the PC, they're very indicative of what the consoles will get. Maybe 5 or 10 years later, right? So the new big thing in PC is SFX power supplies, which are really tiny power supplies. They're not normal standard sizing where they're really, really small, but they have 500 to 600 watts now that fit in really tiny cases. Okay, so with that technology being readily available, that kind of changes the landscape, and they possibly could fit an SFX power supply. The PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One would get slightly a little bit bigger. Actually, the Xbox One could fit an SFX power supply and an upgraded GPU. The PS4 would need to get a little bit bigger to support that SFX power supply, but they could technically do it. So right now, with the way technology is right now, they could get away with it.
Yeah, as I said, they would also have to upgrade their cooling, because even though if you open an Xbox One, like they have this like huge ass fan in there, that still wouldn't be sufficient because it's still the old style like 10 based heatsink. Yeah, they would have to move to like a heat pipe based cooling system.
Like some
to keep
GPUs.
it really cool, they would move to that liquid cooling, which
okay.
Has anybody dealt with liquid cooling? Because I'm interested in upgrading my PC.
Ken, weren't you doing liquid cooling on that other system when you were closer to me? Like when you had that.
I used to do liquid cooling. I've since switched back to heat sinks and fans because they're more controllable. Like in Nelson's situation, we built this PC. It's just a warning for people. When those things go bad, although you have a warranty, and if you don't buy a store warranty and can go back and replace the same day, you'll be waiting about 2 weeks to get another liquid cooling solution for your computer from the vendors. So that's the problem with that, and that's why I use heat sinks. But yeah, I used to use liquid cooling, and I still have one coming my way as a replacement. But yeah, liquid cooling is getting smaller. They can fit it in smaller cases and stuff. AMD's done a pretty good job with their GPUs and being liquid cooled and everything. So I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed in the PC market, especially with the external graphics unit. Have you seen a thing from Razer? Basically, it's like a lightning bolt connector that connects to the PC. And basically that the GPU just gets a power supply. You connect it to anything. You can play games on any type of system from that.
Now, with that, like, why don't they go with that route for these consoles? Because that's what I was thinking.
They possibly will, right? Intel has that NUC stuff. So there's like a bigger NUC, a version of a NUC, which is like an ultra slim thing with the CPU on it. USB 3 and all that.
So that will work on USB 3.0 because we know the X1 has a USB 3.0 port on the side, right? And the PS4 has how many 3.0 ports?
Three. Is it 3? They have one in the back or something? On the side, I think.
Yeah, I think
2 in the back, 1 on the side.
Yeah, so if the 3.0 is adequate enough, then they could stretch out the life of these consoles for the 4K and whatever else. Just use that until they get to the next consoles. Don't make a new system, Sony. It's not. They're already firmly in place as a with the lead. You know what I mean? You would hate to see them lose their momentum because of something like this. Take a page out of Microsoft's book and all the bad decisions that they made, and that's why they're in the position that they are now. There's no need to take an unnecessary shots or risk at this stage in the game. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna start closing this up. We can continue talking about this on the director's cut, but for those of you watching, shout out to Shin Raven, who's actually active in the chat right now. He's actually here in Jersey taking care of some business, but it's good to know that you're close. But New Gaming Order, make sure you rate, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on newgamingorder.com for the latest and greatest gaming news. And shout out to our partner Fullscreen, who has been doing nothing but good things for us. And my goal for the end of the summer is to hit 1,900 subs. So tell your friends about us, spread the word, and we'll be right back for our next segment. Peace.